Welcome to Two Roots Alpacas. You may remember us coming here on the Great Tennessee Yarn Tour, but today we're back to do something very special. We're gonna see how yarn goes from alpaca all the way to skein.
So small, watch the clock ticking off the wall, but tonight I'm letting it go. Spend my coin for sure. I'm gonna be myself, or I could be someone else. No one's stopping me now. I'm gonna skip my breaks, I'm gonna make mistakes. I just wanna feel alive.
Okay, we're gonna start by meeting all of the alpaca. Is it alpacas or alpaca?
Alpacas.
Alpacas.
Yeah, with an S. And these are the females.
These are all the females. And so how many females do you have?
37.
And in total you have how many?
55.
So where do you keep the...
We'll meet those. They're in the back side of the barn in the lean-to area.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, let's meet them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a trip to Mars. Nothing can break me. No, nothing can break me.
Two Roots Alpacas owners Ruth Anne and Brad are going to take us on a tour of their alpaca farm and later the fiber mill. We'll start out meeting the alpacas and get an understanding of how Ruth Anne determines which alpacas will be used for yarn.
Through my cigarette. City lights looking fine, and I know this is my time now. I'm gonna be myself, or I could be someone else. No one's stopping me now. I'm gonna skip my breaks, I'm gonna make mistakes. I just wanna feel alive. It's just what I do when I'm out, so try not to hold me down. Feel alive when I'm in this town.
What does that mean that you do your own hay?
So that means we have about 20 acres in hayfield. So we process that area so that we can plant the seed, and Brad usually uses the no-till drill to plant, and we do orchard grass. And then this year we got 3 cuttings off of it. So we got a May cutting, a July cutting, and a September cutting. And we do square bales, so we put up about 1,000 bales.
Wow. And how long will that feed them for?
Usually a hay bale is about a pound of hay per animal per day.
Okay.
And so these are 50 to 60 pound bales. And so that, one bale will last us a couple of days, at least right now. And in the winter though, this is Caroline. Yeah, I know you want a carrot, and fingers don't taste the same. I got it.
Yeah,
So-
tell me, you were saying some fiber is shorter and some is
Yeah.
longer, so...
So Angel's fiber is a little coarser. She has a lot of guard hairs, and that is not desirable. But then some of them, like Caroline and Posa too. Posa's a little older, but Caroline's younger. Their fiber, you can see that you don't have any heavier fiber sticking up, and those are like primaries and guards. And so her fiber would be yarn worthy. And
Okay.
so is Serendipity, the one next to her. And then JoJo is too, because everything has JoJo in it. But anyway, their prime blanket is their saddle area. So it's this area here around their back. And the blankets go be between 3 and 6 pounds. Snowflake's our biggest girl. She has a 6-pound fleece. And then so we pull that off of them. They're shorn on the ground, and we noodle it. And noodling is where we basically take it off, put it on craft paper, and jelly roll it into a package. And then their neck fiber is called what we call the seconds. And their seconds are still as fine as their first usually, but they tend to be a little shorter and a little bit more inconsistent. So we'll use those either for roving, if it's fine enough for roving and long enough, or we'll use it in some sort of craft application, you know, either for felting kits or whatever.
So who's looking at all of the fibers and determining like this gets used for yarn, this gets used for rugs? Like, are you the one sorting through?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but we know almost going into shearing who is good for what. You know, we have, you know, we like the thirds is everything else that's not in their blanket or their neck fiber. If it's long enough, if it's real short, like at the bottom of the legs, we don't keep that. But we'll use that for boot inserts and also for rugs.
Oh, okay, cool. And then what time of year do you shear them?
We shear usually the first to the mid part of April.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a 2-day process, and we make it into I wouldn't say it's a party. When we're doing it, it's serious. But after we're finished, we have a big luncheon and feed everybody, and it's fun. We try to make it as enjoyable as possible.
That's so
both
cool.
for the animals and for us.
Yeah. So you said you have somebody come down and do the shearing part of it, and then who else is like part of that team?
Well, he has a person that's a handler. So that person basically just helps him keep the animal still during the shearing process. And then we have about 20 volunteers that help for various things. We have 4 guys that get the animal from the holding area onto the mat. And then we have 2 ladies that take the fleece off the mat and put it into the noodling or into bags. Then I have 2 ladies in the back that roll it up into their jelly rolls. We have 2 other people that sweep.
Wow. It's like a full assembly line.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has a role. That's so cool.
Then there's usually a group of them out here once the animal comes off the mat to make sure that the animal goes in the proper place afterwards so that they can go out to the pasture. And, hi, sweet girl. I know. So Blossom is just used for roving. Her fiber tends to be a little short, and so we use it mainly for roving for hand spinners. One of the things that's really important, both for good quality fiber and also for their well-being, is herd health. And so the day we got her, we went and picked her up, and it was a horrible situation. But anyway, that being said, we had University of Tennessee Vet School coming out the next day. They were teaching a class here, weren't they? I think that was in March. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But they were coming out. We also have them come out to help us every once in a while. But she was diagnosed with meningeal worm, which is a parasite that gets into their spinal fluid. And so we caught it early enough. And so that's why she has kind of a limp. Aww. It's because she has permanent damage back there.
Oh, poor thing.
Yeah, nerve damage. All right, so let's go see the boys.
All right.
And we'll go out and see little Moo Moo too, because he's the fleece that I have in the mill. All right, guys. Y'all need to move.
Oh, I see a little one over there.
Yeah, that's Moonshadow. He's the one we'll look at his fleece.
I think we saw him when we were here in August.
Yeah.
But he was smaller.
He was smaller.
Yeah,
He's
a little
still pretty
smaller.
tiny.
I've been feeling so small.
Okay, so after the alpaca have been sheared and you have rolled it up into this jelly roll, what happens to start the process into like making it into yarn? That's where we are now, right?
Yep, we're at the first of the process. So all our jelly rolls, this one's been open because we've used it in demos before, has the name of the animal, the color, what year it was sheared. Usually I have the weight, but I found that I just keep it on an Excel file instead of putting it on here. It's much easier. But I pretty much know what product that fiber is going to before they're even shorn, because we try to consistently use the same animals and the same products year after year.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is Vinny. This is one of our little gray boys, and he's beautiful.
Wow. It kind of looks like an alpaca. It's just
Yeah.
like its head or something.
And so by bringing it out
Wow.
in the paper, you keep the integrity of the fleece.
So now we're gonna head into the fiber mill where we've got all different kinds of machines, and Brad's gonna give us a tour of how they work. So from tumbling, we go to...
weighing and soaking.
Okay, let's go see it.
From more as much a business point of view as anything, we do a lot of weighing of the fiber because of all of our processing is based on weight. So, you know, there's a price for washing, and that's based on the weight that comes out of the tumbler. So it gets weighed when it comes into here. And then the other reason for weighing it is that we'll divide it equally into 3 bins. And when we look at the washer, there's 3 bins in the washer, so we want to have roughly an equal amount of fiber in each pail. The reason for putting the fiber in the pails and soaking it is that natural fiber wants to shed water. So if you just throw it directly into the washer, then some of those fibers are going to be dry during part of the washing. So to help the washer do its job better,
It's
we go ahead
saturated.
and, you go ahead and soak it.
So these have already been weighed, evenly divided, and now they're soaking.
Right. And this is some of the stuff that she washed yesterday. So,
Oh.
and when we soak it here, we'll soak it anywhere from 3 hours to probably, a day or a day and a half. We wouldn't go much over that because they can start to get a little rank.
Is this just water?
Mhm.
Okay.
And the washer is this guy, very gentle. Unlike a home washer, it's not going to agitate. We heard a little humming when we closed the door before, and that humming was the washer making a turn about at this speed, and then it'll stop and sit for a minute, and then continue on with the same turn again. So we typically will wash things twice. Twice gets it clean, usually, not all the time, but typically twice. And we have it's a commercial soap that we buy. It's not a scouring agent. In other words, it's not burning off any of the vegetable matter and that sort of thing. It's not for super wash, if you wish. It's just for a regular. It's a environmentally friendly, soap that is actually produced over in North Carolina.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Cool. Super cool.
Which is good for us because we buy it in a 55-gallon drum, and shipping a 55-gallon drum is a little on the pricey side.
Oh my gosh.
With alpaca, we'll typically wash between 120 and 130 degrees, roughly, which is hot enough to typically get the job done without being enough to overly do it.
Yeah.
If we're doing wool, we have to go to that hotter temperature because you have to get something to get that'll loosen up the lanolin and let the lanolin flow free.
Gotcha.
And there's a similar kind of waxy covering on mohair, and it takes hot water too in order to get that, to loose. So from there, it's going to go over onto these plastic racks to dry. We've got some that we've actually bundled up here. So Barbara, before she left these racks open so that we've got a place to put that once it comes out of the wash. But it's probably worthwhile to have a look at the at this fiber. This happens to be alpaca as well. And you can see after coming out of the wash, it's kind of clumpy, you know, and sort of sticking together. That's normal. That's what we would expect to have happen. And as a result of that, that leads us into what the next step is after it dries. In our facility here, we'll dry in about a day, day and a half maybe, is probably about the right length of time. So, and I guess I could have shown you this too. So this is actually the alpaca that is going into the local cloth project. So this is the washed but not yet picked or blended alpaca. So this is the raw mohair. So it doesn't look like a goat, does it?
It's so fluffy. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So this,
Can I touch it? Oh, yeah. Wow.
the next, this is the rambouillet.
Which is just a kind of sheep
It's a type of wool.
type of wool.
Yeah. On the rambouillet, we did actually go through the fiber separator with it initially, and that's why it looks more like a cotton ball, because it's already gone through a carding type activity.
Oh, okay.
And
It's
that
further
was-
along in the process.
Well, in this case, it had a fair amount of vegetable matter in it, so we were doing some. We ran it through the fiber separator, which will also help remove vegetable matter.
Mhm.
We did that to begin with.
I am sitting down with Judy, who is the founder of Local Cloth, which is a nonprofit in Asheville, North Carolina. So thank you for coming here today. I didn't realize you had to come from, where did you say you were?
Weaverville.
Weaverville in North Carolina.
Mhm.
And we're in Tennessee. But so how about how far away?
It's only about 25 or 30 miles.
Oh, really?
But it takes more than an hour because the roads are like this to get from Weaverville or Asheville up
Oh
to
my
here.
goodness.
Yeah.
So tell me more about Local Cloth. What is Local Cloth?
We founded Local Cloth in 2011. And our idea was that if we could get farmers and artists to work together, that we could grow the fiber economy. That's our mission. It's really an economic development mission. So we thought farmers would make more money if local weavers would buy their fiber or yarn. And then weavers would make products that could sell for more if they were using local material. So we drew a circle. We said, how far away are people willing to go in order to make this happen? And we said, most people will drive about 2 hours to go to someplace special or to do something special. So that was about a 100-mile radius around Asheville. And so that's what we picked.
So how many organizations or like farmers and businesses do you have in like part of your team, I guess?
You're going to be surprised at this. I
Okay.
sure was. When we started, we had probably 15 people sitting around a big conference table. And we had farmers, because I'm a spinner.
Okay.
And so I knew farmers because I was looking for the raw material.
Mhm.
But I'm also a weaver and a knitter, so I knew artists. I knew people that had shops that sold these things. So I would just get a couple of each to come together and we'd meet and talk about it. And we went from that to having about 100 members by the end of our first year. And all we were really doing at that point was we did a fashion show and we did an exhibit. But we were talking a lot about the importance of fiber to this region because we have a lot of history. We did a census and found we had more than 400 fiber artists who were trying to make a living as fiber artists in our region in that 100-mile radius. We had about 2,500 people from our best guess who were either knitters or spinners, more hobbyists, but pursuing those crafts. We had about a dozen shops that sold fiber art and yarn. We thought, well, this is substantial. You know, this is something that could grow.
So you're really connecting like from the farmer to the person who's making things by hand.
Yeah.
So from that process, you've connected people all in this area. So tell me about your connection to where we are now, Two Roots Alpacas.
Yes. Well, A couple of years ago, I decided that it was time we grew into our name. In other words, that you would walk in the door of Local Cloth and you could buy local cloth. Because it wasn't 100% local. The weavers were still buying their yarn online, and the farmers were still shipping their fiber off someplace else, never to return again. And so I started talking to people I'd met over the years to see who wanted to help. And Ruth Anne wanted to help. Her mill was kind of right-sized for us to make some sample yarn that could be then woven into sample blankets. And she worked with us from the very beginning.
Wow.
So I had experimented during the pandemic with the right blend of fiber. We had an online, a Zoom spinning group that met once a month. And I would send them samples from my bags of fleece in my studio at home. And we'd all sit together on Zoom and spin it and say what we liked and what we didn't like and what we might try blending with what. And we came up with this blend where we used about 70% wool and about 15% alpaca and about 15% mohair, all for different qualities that we liked. And so I decided that would be our yarn.
Wow.
And that was what she made for us.
Oh.
And it came back to us, and then we dyed it. We have a natural dye study group in Local Cloth. And so they took a couple months to dye it, all different natural dye colors. And then we had weavers at Warren Wilson College, which is just outside Asheville and Swannanoa, and Haywood Community College, which is over in Haywood County. And they wove blankets for us. And so we had 19 designs. Somebody read an article in our newsletter about this project and wrote to me. Her name was Heather, who lived in Charleston, wrote to me and said, I used to work for Churchill Weavers, and I was their blanket designer. Do you want some help? And I said, fabulous. It was that kind of a project. And so Heather did a Zoom conversation with the weavers, and we talked through different kind of designs, and she gave them some ideas about how to make it simple so anybody could weave the blankets, but still beautiful. And those are the designs that we ended up using and then choosing.
The yarn that's in the blankets is truly local. It's from local farms and then processed locally.
Yep.
And then hand woven?
Dyed with local.
Dyed locally.
Dye stuffs, grown local.
Wow.
And then woven locally.
Wow.
Yep, all of it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So how can we people interact with Local Cloth? I know it's going to be different if you're like a local fiber artist, or what about as a consumer as well?
Oh, we'd be happy to have you come into the shop. We sell mostly in our store. We've got 62 vendors now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you can go and shop other items too.
Yes.
What kind of items do you have?
We have one section of household goods like tablecloths and napkins and decorative items. We have one section, the biggest section is clothing. So it could be shirts and skirts and
oh, wow. That's
dresses and jackets and a lot of scarves. And then we also have an area we call the maker space. And that's where we have fiber, yarn, dyes.
And this is all in Asheville?
In Asheville, yep.
Wow.
And the blankets are for sale both in the shop and online. That's the only thing we have for sale online right now.
Gotcha.
And it's localcloth.org.
Okay. Very cool. That's amazing.
And we've gone from having 100 members at the end of our first year. We now have 450.
Wow.
So you can also you can join Local Cloth just to support what we're trying to do and be a member. If you're a member, you get discounts on classes. We offer about 75 different in-person workshops every year. So if somebody's going to take a vacation in Asheville, they should go to our website and see what classes are coming up, and they might find something very interesting to take. And again, everything that we sell in the shop, from eco printing, which is printing with plants on material or paper, to weaving, to felting, we teach everything that we sell.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
Very cool. I definitely want to come and visit when we're in
Yeah,
Nashville.
You should.
Next time.
And there's probably, I think we've got 4 different yarn shops in Nashville too.
Yes, I've been to a few, but I haven't been in many years, so I got to come back.
So after it's dried, the next step is to go through the picker. And its job is really to loosen things up. What's happening on this machine here is the fiber is going to go along and it's going to go through these input rollers and be held more or less at the backside of those rollers. And then that big roller in the middle that's got the spikes on it that we see in there, it's going fairly fast and it's going to grab onto this fiber, whatever fiber you're putting through there, and it's going to throw it into the room next to you. The reason why it's throwing it into the room next to you, or next to us here, is that we need to have an opportunity to condition the fiber as it's going through the process. And the conditioner is effectively a spray bottle with a anti-static agent in it. So when we're conditioning it, we're really just trying to control static is all we're doing. Prior to where we're filming here, we had taken the alpaca and the mohair and we had run that through the fiber separator and we conditioned, or through the picker, and we conditioned it as well.
Okay.
So this is now a blend of alpaca and mohair.
Oh, I see.
So this is our 15-15 blend of, or 15% of our overall mixture here. Actually, this is 30% because it's 15% mohair, 15% alpaca, and this is our 70%.
Got it.
So the next step we're going to go through now is to take wool and this, and we're going to blend that together.
Okay.
And we're using the picker to do that blending for us. So I'm going to try to pull off roughly, a 70% chunk of this.
Now, how do you know it's going to be 70 and 30? Do you weigh it, or
This has been weighed out. So
these two have been weighed out. Gotcha.
Yeah. So now I'm going to try to, as best I can, do a 70-30 here just by laying those out. And in most cases, because this stuff is lighter and fluffier, I'm going to put it on the bottom. That'll keep it from, as this is running, because that wheel is going to turn pretty fast when we turn it on. It creates a draft that's going to blow into the other room. And it has a tendency that it could just suck the fiber up over the top of it. We also turn a exhaust fan on that room, and that's to keep the air pressure in that room at a neutral level. If we didn't have that, the pressure could build up in that room and then the fiber would back into here.
Oh.
And if it backed into here, then its chances are it would tear it. Let's go ahead and fire it up.
Do I need to connect it to this one kind of like that?
No. The one thing about the picker is it's pretty forgiving.
Okay, so we've picked it, and this batch you said you were blending at the picker, but not always.
Right.
So sometimes where you blend it?
So we could blend either at the draw frame, which is farther down, or we could blend, here at the carder, or we can blend at the plier. Okay. So put 2 different color strands together, make a barber pole, right?
Yeah.
So, but at this particular point, I think, as I said earlier on, with this particular blend of fiber, we'll likely pick that twice. So after we run everything all the way through, we'll bag it back up, bring it out here, and then run it through a second time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just to try to get the fiber as uniform as we can.
Gotcha.
Okay. The other thing you'll notice is that some of that fiber still had some vegetable matter in it.
Mm-hmm.
So after we're finished picking it twice, then we'll bring it down here to the fiber separator.
Oh, okay.
The way the fiber separator works, I'm just moving these things back out of the way here, is there's a couple of rollers in here. So it's going to feed the fiber in here, and we can adjust the speed of these rollers so that they go, at different speeds. And as the fiber is coming in there, depending on how fast it's going and what the centrifugal force is, the lighter fibers are going to be able to move from one roller to the other and come out the backside of the fiber separator, whereas the heavier ones won't make the gap and they'll fall down into the bottom here. So this is the stuff that's falling out of our blend.
And is that the desirable, like the heavier is like the longer? Is that what you actually want to use?
No, in this case, the heavier is the guard hairs or the primaries and the vegetable matter.
Wow.
So this is all stuff that we didn't really want in the yarn, right? So, and I'll just leave that in there for now as it's come out of the picker.
Wow. Yep, you can see there's a little bit in there.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of stuff in there. And what we're going to want to do here is, and it's going to take a minute or two to get this guy going.
Okay.
But we put this fairly sparingly on here. We don't put it too heavy.
It is a slow machine.
This is the good stuff here.
Okay, so before the fiber separator and after.
Although that fiber is nice and fluffy now, the fibers aren't necessarily all going in the same direction. So to get the fibers all going into the same direction so that you can work with it, that's where the carder comes into play.
Okay.
So that's the next step. And the way the carder works is we put a certain amount of fiber between the two blue lines. It's, in mill terminology, it's a feed. And in this particular case, we're doing 2.5 ounce feeds. So we're going to weigh out 2.5 ounces of the fiber that's come out of the fiber separator, and we're going to put it between these blue lines. What the carder is going to do is it's going to take that fiber in here. So it's going to place it on the big wheel in the middle. And then this is a worker and a stripper pairs here. And there's 4 of them. It's going to pull that fiber off of the wheel, the big wheel, and then immediately put it back on again. And because the big wheel's turning and you're pulling the fiber off and putting it back on, that's what gets the fibers all lined up going the same direction. Then as it comes over here towards the end, this is called the fancy because it's got long fancy needles on it. I don't know why it's called the fancy actually. But it's actually loosening the fiber off of that big wheel so it can be picked up by the final roller here.
Wow.
That is referred to as the dofer. And dofer, I'm told, is an old English term that means something that happens at the end. So that gives you an idea where the technology comes from.
Yeah.
Think Old England. As it's coming off the dofer over here, there's a comb that helps it come off,
Mhm.
as I just pulled some of the dust off of there. And we have a web of fiber that's coming out. And we're taking that web of fiber that have all those fibers going in the same direction, and we're putting it through this gadget that's a roving deck is what we refer to it as. And that takes that final fiber, and it's all coming out here now, all going in the same direction.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll go ahead and start it up, and then we'll start weighing out feeds and putting other new feeds on here so that we get the fiber coming out of the back side of this. We can just go ahead and turn this on
Okay.
for Lucky. There we go.
Balance. Okay.
And there's your fiber right
here?
there. So that's come out of the fiber separator.
Okay. And how many ounces?
2.5.
2.5 ounces. All right. Do you have like where you kind of know, like you could, can I use this that I dropped it?
Mhm.
Okay. You kind of know like how much is going to be 2.5 ounces? Like
You get better. You very seldomly hit it right on 2.5 ounces.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. It's a lot.
mhm.
Get in there. Stay in there. Oh.
Just a tiny little bit. Perfect. Woo!
And so we want it to be evenly throughout the whole thing?
Yeah, as close as we can get.
Okay. Oh boy. Do you have one person normally do this? Or
Mhm.
two? So is that okay?
Yep,
Is it good? Okay.
we're good. Yep. So this is some fiber that's come out of the carder here.
Wow.
And we typically weigh each one of them. There's about 100 yards in each one of these bins. And we'll weigh that just so that we can keep track of, are we losing fiber along the way? So that could be an indication that, we don't have the vacuum set right or whatever on the carder. So there's some certain keys there. So from here, the next step is to go through the draw frame. The purpose of the draw frame is to normalize the roving so we get a consistent size roving all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's typically done on 2 passes through here.
Oh,
So
okay.
on the first pass through, which is what we're doing right now, it's going to come in here, stretch it out 2.5 times its length, and then put it back in those barrels.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll run those barrels back through and do it a second time. On the second pass through, we're usually organizing it or metering it out so that it matches the yarn we're going to produce. So if it's a small batch and we're doing a 3-ply yarn, then we'll want to have some multiple of 3 on our finished cans that are coming out, because each can will become a bobbin when we get to the spinner.
Okay.
Okay. So, and that's just all about trying to minimize the amount of waste that there is in the process.
Interesting.
So there's not much to do with this one, particularly once it's started, other than pushing the green button.
Ooh.
So,
Oh.
and then the only other thing we have to do here is make sure it's falling in the middle of the bucket.
Okay. And it kind of loops around. Okay, so what happens here at the spinner?
2 things happen at the spinner.
Mm-hmm.
The first is we're going to draft the roving out, our unified roving that we've gotten out of the draw frame. We're going to draft that out to the weight or the thickness that we need for the weight of yarn that we're making.
Oh.
And in this particular case, it's a 2-ply worsted weight yarn.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that the single has to be about, what we're targeting is, I believe, 1,800 yards a pound for the single. We put 2 of those together, will be 900 yards a pound for the finished yarn. And that's the target that we're shooting to make
Okay.
for this. Okay? So prior to this, because this is, I think, our 7th or 8th pass through on this, we've already got the spinner set up at the way we want it. And we control the draft by having the back wheel run slower than the front wheel,
Okay.
or roller here, I should say, roller. So because this roller is holding it and this one is pulling it, that's what's going to stretch the roving out to the thickness that we need. And then this will be in the down position. This is going to be holding the roving as it's coming through here on this side, and it's going to go down onto a spindle and onto a bobbin down here at the bottom, and this is going to be spinning, and that's what will put the twist in it. So
Interesting.
it's the twist that gives it the strength. This part down here is just like your spinning wheel.
Mm-hmm.
This part up
It's like
here
your
is like
hands.
your hands
Drafting.
that is drafting it
Wow.
out. Okay, so nothing real magical about it.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
It's basically the same as your hand spinning operation.
Yes. But
So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at a time.
we're just feeding it out of the cans that have come out of the draw frame into here. And we can actually go across and do all of these at the beginning, but we'll just, for conservation of time, we'll just do a couple
Okay.
until you get to try it.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so see how we got that
Mhm.
fed through there?
Mhm.
Then the next step is we have to start the drafting. So we'll set this down and then it locks into place. And it takes a little effort to put that down.
Okay.
And then I'm going to hold on to these while it pulls it out, and in order to get the drafting starting
Got it.
and set up right. So it'll be a little noisy here for a minute.
It's so fine. Like, can you see that, Kent? Like, compared to how it started in the roving to drafted. That's wild.
Mhm. So at this point, without any twist in it,
Mm-hmm.
there's no strength at all. It just
Right.
falls apart. And because we're doing lots of this, I can put this back over here and it'll go back through.
Oh, nice. No waste.
It's going to be yanked and pulled on some more. So then the second step is to go ahead and set up the bobbin so we can get it to twist.
So is this like a leader?
Yep, that's exactly what it is. And when you're doing this, you want to slide that leader in.
Mm-hmm.
If you pull it up or down, you'll break that drafted roving off, and then it won't necessarily start.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might. I mean, sometimes you get lucky. And we'll just get that guy started on here.
Now this looks like my ball winder has like a curly cue like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are quite common in this industry, it seems. All right, so I got those two there. So now I go ahead and I'll just hold on to my leaders here so that I can feed them in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put too much tension on this
Mhm.
because if I do, it'll cause a tornado and kind of spin up on itself. So we ought to just guide it so it goes down to the middle.
Wow. Okay, So I saw you use a tool to feed it through.
So this is just you might have nails that you could get in there, but this
I don't
guy's
think so. That looks pretty small.
So
Okay,
you want to reach
so-
through, and here I can.
Is it
I don't know.
this one?
Yeah, that's one side, and then this is the other side.
Inside. So I go through here. You made it look so easy.
Okay.
Now, you had to draft it, right?
Well, you've got to
Pre-draft it.
put this down first.
Okay.
So, and there is a little bit of a trick here. You want to make sure that these roller or these bands kind of line up, and there's a bit of play in here.
Okay.
So
Those
you
look
should-
good?
yeah. It
Now, I
looks-
know you had to put a lot of pressure on this. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And then,
So with one hand,
Uh-huh.
or do you want me to do? I can do the on-off button for you.
yes, please.
Okay. So you're going to hold those,
Uh-huh.
and it's very gentle.
Okay.
Here, you're just trying to keep those from getting tied up into something else.
Okay. Got them.
So, okay. You ready?
Yes,
There
I'm
you go.
ready.
Go ahead and
Now this
Clamp it
come in the
down.
middle,
yeah,
and then
but
this
you,
goes all the way down.
all right. Mhm.
Okay.
And then make sure you're attached.
Oh,
Or you're started here.
so did you just give them a little twist?
Yep. And sometimes a little,
A little spit.
a little spit works too.
So I'm guessing there's something you can do if it comes apart, right?
Yeah, you just go through this process again to
And ply
effectively
it
add it
together.
together. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So here again, you don't want to hold these too tight
Okay.
because it'll tornado.
Okay.
You just don't want them to hook
Get-
up on
yeah.
themselves.
Okay, I'm
You're
ready.
all set?
Yes. No.
You got
Hey, that one actually did. I thought that one was the one that was going to come apart. It's been spun into just a single strand. So that brings us to this machine.
Right. So at the spinner, our default here at the mill is to always spin everything counterclockwise.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come over to the plier, we're going to go back the other direction, spinning them clockwise. And at the spinner, we've spun it so that there's extra twist in that yarn. And it's that extra twist that will hold everything together once we get it plied. So when it comes down here, it's still got a little bit of life to it, but after it sits in a skein or on a bobbin for a day or two, it'll relax out. So this guy here, the bobbins are up at the top, the finished yarn's coming down here, and the only thing you have to do is just turn this button just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
clockwise and it'll start.
Okay. So do I get to do that?
Yes.
Right, don't break all these ones.
Clockwise. Just a tiny bit?
Yep.
All right. I can do this job.
So once we have the finished yarn on this bobbin here, we have two ways to package it. We can either package it as a skein, or we can package it up on cones. So those are our two options here. Because this fiber is going off to local cloth to make blankets out of, they're going to dye anything that we put on a skein. So we're actually, when we're tying this off, well, we're doing two things that are different than we normally would. We're tying it very loose, so we call that tied for dye, because the dye has to be able to get in underneath these ties. And the other thing we're doing is, because they're weaving with it, we're putting these in 8-ounce skeins, which is just about a full bobbin. So there's a full bobbin down here.
Okay.
That's an 8-ounce skein.
What would you normally do for like 100-gram skein of yarn for like a knitter or something? Is that 4 ounces?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I see 100 grams
Or 3.5?
would be, no, I think it's a little bit more than that. So it varies a little bit. Some farms will want 200 yards on a skein, or depending if it's a big bulky, they might say 100 yards on the skein, and they'll go a fixed length, which is okay with us. In our particular case, for the stuff that we put in our store, everything's 4 ounces. On the Skein Winder, like I said, these are normal. They're bigger than normal. The only real trick here is that when we tie it on, we do a slip knot so that we can, after it's wound up here, we can very easily pull that off and tie it off. So
Smart.
that's kind of the first thing that we do. And it just goes through here. It's got a length counter on it. So like if we're doing, we can get, sometimes easily get 8 ounces here. So normally we would have 2 skeins worth on a bobbin down here, and we'd know what the length of that was. So, and then after that, it's just a matter of pushing the button and away it goes, and it's wrapping up the skein. This guy slides in so the skein comes off. And then we could do this number to,
Oh gosh, no.
but no.
That's hard.
Well, especially for us old guys. So we put it on here, and then all we got to do is push the button. And because it's so fat, we're only doing a few twists here. And there we go. We have a skein.
A finished skein of yarn. Okay, is there a particular part of the skein that you put on here? Like, do you want it to be at this or like not at the tie, or?
I usually don't put it on the tie because
Okay.
that's usually on the end. And the trick here is, let me get out of your way.
Oh yeah, sorry.
You'll want to come over here and you want to pull straight out, which is like right to about that point
Okay.
over there. Okay.
All right.
So you're going to,
Looks like I
it's
flipped
going to
it.
twist. So you just want to hold it reasonably tight
Okay.
so that you'll get all the strands the same direction. And then there's a foot pedal right there.
Okay. I feel like I can't be like close enough to it. Am I ready to press it?
I think so. We'll find out.
Does it stop on its own, or do you have to stop?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got a counter on it. It's going to put 4 twists on it for you.
Okay. Whoop.
Okay.
Now bend it in.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Hold on. Did you bend it this way?
Right.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Hold on. I've done this before. Do you just do it over once or twice?
Well, I think for that size of skein, once is enough.
And a finished skein of yarn.
And a finished skein of yarn. We did it.
Yay!
We did it. We made some yarn from alpaca all the way to skein. You got to see how yarn is made. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.